We live in the midst of a culture that has, I would say, a significant amount of depression and anxiety, angst, as they call it in psychiatry, where people are wondering, is anything going right? Now, recently I was at yet another meeting and flying back from it, and for some reason the Eagles song got in my head. You know how melodies kind of worm their way in sometimes. The one, Learn to Be Still. And in it, Don Henley sings, how do I get out of here? Where do I fit in? And, you know, drummers often can be quite philosophical, right? Kind of profound guys, you know. Okay. So that was in my head because I had just come back from yet another meeting. And I go to all these meetings, and I think many of you do too, and you decide all kinds of important things, and a week later you wonder, did anything really happen? Was I in a dream? You know, we decided X, Y, and Z, but I don't really see that much change. And I was recently reading evaluations that Regents had done. I was at this Board of Regents meeting, and a number of them wrote, like most of them said, wow, it's so much better since we have the trustee delegate. Well, that's me. and I thought, what did I do? I kind of scratched my head thinking, how is it possibly so much better? I mean, I don't really remember that I did much of anything. How do I fit in? How do I get out of this? I mean, isn't there something more meaningful? Now let's look back at the time of Simon, Peter, and James, and John, and Jesus. For these Hebrews, being fishermen, they worked together typically in like a consortium. So their relatives and close friends would form this sort of business conglomerate, if you will. And Simon apparently was in charge of one of these fishing operations. And that was a big business at the time. And it was not unusual for Hebrew men to hear a great rabbi and leave everything and go with him for a while. They did that, and they could do it because they, remember, the extended family. All of your relatives were called brother and sister. So brothers and sisters all pitched in and ran the business while the guys were off doing their thing with the rabbi for a while. And that's what we see happening here. And there's no need to imagine that this is the first time Simon hears Jesus speak. He could have heard him a number of times before. But this time, it pushed Simon to a deeper level of faith. Why do I say that? We have that great line from the gospel, we've been fishing all night and have caught nothing. They feel like they're living a life, Henry David Thoreau said, of quiet desperation. They're trying so hard for so long, and nothing really seems to change. And then a rabbi from the hills, remember Jesus is from Nazareth, he's not a fisherman, okay? This guy from the hills comes and tells the fishermen what to do. Well, the fishermen didn't know a lot, but they knew how to fish. That's why they were fishing at night. It wasn't that successful during the day, so they weren't doing it. But Jesus tells them, even though it's the day, go out and fish again. And Simon has to take an act of faith in this person whom he thinks probably knows absolutely nothing about fishing, telling him how to fish. And one thing he knew by God was to fish. But he did it. He followed what the Lord told him. And that's when Simon recognizes, because of the huge catch, the presence of the Holy. We heard that today in the first reading from Isaiah, how the prophet recognizes that he doesn't belong there, that he's having this vision of the presence of God in the temple, and it's so overwhelming that even the building is shaking. And he says, woe is me, I don't belong here. Simon Peter's reaction is the same. Depart from me, for I am a sinful man. And yet for Isaiah the angel, the seraph, cleanses his lips so that he can speak. And for Simon, what will happen? The presence of the Holy will cleanse his lips too, so that he can speak. We have to recognize that in the midst of our lives, which we may think don't really amount to much, or we're kind of frustrated with so many things, that the presence of God with us leads us to do things beyond what we thought we could do, well beyond. And that many things, because of our presence, because of our action, our commitment, many things have changed even though we may not see them and we may not feel them. And I can tell you often I don't see them and often I don't feel them. But I know, because of the one who is with me, that it's worthwhile. And I want you to believe the same. Because of the one who is with you, it's worthwhile. With Christ, we are capable of so many things. And by ourselves, we may scratch our heads and wonder if we manage to do anything. But with Christ, Christ knows better than we do. We too can become fishers of people. That's what we're called to do. And we cannot do that without Christ. But with him, the presence of the holy, we can do it. And so I ask you on this Sunday morning, try this week. Try to recognize the moments of the presence of the holy with you. And when you do that, you will never lead a life of quiet desperation. You will be alive, aflame in the Spirit. Go with that this week. The Spirit with you, the presence of the holy.